Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Mark Grayshot. This is Another Bottle Down, and it's one of my favorite segments that we do here on the show. So let me give you a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll hear from all of our guests. We've got a full studio. It's a beautiful day here in Austin, and I'm getting thirsty for some Sangiovese. So we've blind tasted in the lobby 6 different Sangioveses from around the world, 6 different regions, and we'll kind of talk about them, and 2 different countries. So I think we're going to be seeing the U.S. and Italy probably, and but 6 totally different regions. And my guests here, who are winemakers and wine professionals and experts in the Austin area and beyond, do not know the wines. And what's the fun part about this is you can go to the Koop blog, koop.org/blog, and you can see what the wines are and more information on the wines as you hear us talking about them blind. So let me go around the room and let's hear. Why don't you all introduce yourselves with your name and say something about what you do in the wine industry. Russell, you want to start us off here?
Yes, I'm Russell Smith. I've been making wine in Texas since 1989. Before that, I was in Napa Valley. And then I bought 2 vineyards in Spain 4 years ago, so now I make wine in Texas and Spain.
That is so cool. You might have a visitor on your doorstep in a few months. All right, Rob, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Rob Moshein, also known as the Austin Wine Guy. I've been doing wine for 33 years now, and professionally in Austin for 23.
Wow.
Been a retailer, a wholesaler now. I'm a wine educator, consulting sommelier, and writer, and general all about wine guy.
Pleasure to have you here. Penny, why don't you introduce yourself? Now, Penny Adams has been on the show before, and if you have missed that show and you're interested, you can go to find the podcast at koop.org/anotherbottledown. So Penny, for folks who don't know you out there,
yes, Penny Adams from Wedding Oak Winery in Scansano, Texas. I've been making wine in Texas since 1982, my first vintage in Texas. Had wine education and viticulture is my background, and grow grapes and make wine here in Texas.
Pleasure to have you here again. And Jesse Brantley, our final guest. Jesse, what do you do in the wine industry?
I'm the wine buyer out at Trattoria Lisina and for the Mantellassi market. So I have the pleasure of spending my days just right on the verge of the hill country and sharing Italian wines with people who've been drinking Texas wines all day. So it can be a challenge, but also quite exciting.
Oh, well, this is going to be great because your perspective here, we're tasting Italian wines and Texas wines, so I'm really interested in having your perspective here. And okay, well, if anybody has any questions, give us a call here in the studio, and I might open it up to some of our panelists. So 512-472-KOOP. I really hope you enjoy this. Let's kick it off with wine number 1. So we tasted 6 wines, and let's kind of do a brief talking about the wines first, and then we'll talk about what Sangiovese is about and how it ties us together. Actually, would one of you like to kind of open us off and talk about what typical Sangiovese tastes like? I mean, we had some conversation out in the lobby, which I want to bring a little bit in here now. What do you, as professionals, think about what Sangiovese is about? What do you expect? Rob?
We were talking about this earlier, in fact. When you think about Sangiovese, you think about a soft, light, lush wine, easy to drink generally, friendly. It can be a bit more complicated, but to me, initially, it's a soft, supple, easy to drink red.
Okay. High acid too, I think, is one of the things that defines it. Yeah. Jesse, you want to talk about some of the kind of incantations that aren't just simple, right? There's some that are world-renowned and have a little bit more body.
Absolutely, you're going to find some really nice, complex, dense Sangioveses in Montalcino, and both Rosso di Montalcino and Brunello as well.
Yeah.
So you get that nice complexity. You have the cherry, but it can be more dense, dark cherry.
Yeah.
You have a luxurious, almost cocoa feel to it with
Right.
all the beautiful minerality. And Sangiovese just screams for food. Not that it's not fantastic on its own, but it has those nice dried herbal qualities that just pair wonderfully with Italian cuisine.
Yeah. Russell, I don't think that they drink much Sangiovese in Spain.
No, it's pretty much unknown, but I would agree with Jesse in terms of enjoying Sangiovese, because for me, they're usually best with food, and because they tend to be a little firmer, mid-palate, a little more acidity, as you mentioned earlier.
Right.
They really need nice tomato sauce or maybe a nice Italian cheese to show to their highest advantage.
Right. Wonderful. And Peggy, I would like to have you, now your Sangiovese is not in this lineup, we will say that. So you're tasting from a neutral standpoint. Can you give us just a very brief in and out of growing Sangiovese? What are the little particularities?
Right, Sangiovese grows well in Texas. It is an early bud rate variety in terms of potential frost issues in some vineyards, but typically this grape grows very well in Texas. There's a few clones that we use specifically, clones 6 and 23, that are most planted in hill country. It's a very thin-skinned grape, so it's very apt to rot in rainy conditions like we've been having. So you've got to stay on top of your
Yeah. And
very
so,
thin skin.
so when things go wrong in the vineyard, it's usually due to rot or a freeze in the spring, late freeze.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I hope you all are thirsty. Let's start getting into the wines. Russell, you're to my left here. Do you want to start us off on, so wine number 1 of 6. And again, folks, if you're just tuning in, you can go to the koop.org/blog to see what the wines are that we're talking about here.
Yes, I mean, to me, wine number 1 was kind of a classic old world style, very, not quite austere, but certainly medium bodied. I got classic leathers and strawberry jam, nice color, again, a great wine with food.
Right, and we didn't talk about, color of Sangiovese is usually not as dense as some of the other grapes, and I think that from what Peggy was talking about, the skin, which is where we get a lot of the color from, that might play into it. So Rob, what do you think of number 1? Pick that up.
I have to agree with Russell. I rather liked wine number 1. Had a nice pleasant nose to it. It was a bright nose. Again, I got hints of berry, and it was soft on the palate, but it had nice bright acids, a slight hint of the earthy rusticity.
Right.
It nailed Italy for me, absolutely, from the glass.
All right, yeah. As we're talking, feel free to interject if you think it's Texas or what are some defining characteristics you might pick out. Penny, what do you think of wine number 1?
Well, I thought it had great body and kind of slightly aged color. It was very earthy. Had some great red fruit and kind of figgy, almost dried fig characters to me. The tannins were really nice and it had a great backbone of acidity, but it was very soft in the palate and really super nice wine.
Yeah. Jesse, what do you agree with the panel so far, or what do you think?
I had a hard time with this wine, whether it was Old World or New World, because it was very earth-driven, a lot of that wet potting soil. But the condition of the fruit was quite baked, almost toward dry, which made me flip-flop between New World and Old World. But it was well structured. It still had quite a bit of nice acid. The tannins were very present, but sort of soft, and I really enjoyed the structure and the flavors of this wine. And it seemed quite complex. I kept sort of wanting to go back and take another drink too.
Right. So what's interesting is in tasting in a flight now, all of these folks here are really well versed in tasting a lot of wines in a row, but sometimes the first wine in the flight can be a little bit difficult, right? Did y'all revisit this wine and did it change at all, or did it nail your first impressions right away?
I did revisit it,
Yeah.
and it just reinforced what I had originally thought. It was a little more expressive to me, the earthiness was coming out a little bit more,
Okay, cool.
but I still really liked it on the revisit.
All right, great. Yeah, okay, great. So very nice. Jesse, you want to start us off with the wine number 2?
Wine number 2, I did not enjoy as much as wine number 1. It again had a very baked fruit quality to it. But I also discovered, I don't know if it was a VA quality or something on the nose that just was sort of disjointed about it. I felt like it could have used a little more acid, and it's something about the tannins on the finish just left an unappealing flavor and feeling.
Okay. I just want to help listeners out there put together, in the wine industry, we use this word VA, we throw it around a fair amount. That stands for volatile acidity, which is basically that balsamic, it's technically acetic acid, so that's what balsamic vinegar is, and it's kind of when something goes maybe not the best way, and the wine is tending towards vinegar. Becky, what do you think of wine number 2?
So I thought it was, it left me lacking the desire to, I really didn't desire to go back and visit it much. It was big, but it wasn't something that I could really put my taste to. I felt like it had a little earthiness, but not a lot of fruit. It was big and kind of empty, so to speak, for me.
Yeah. Rob, what'd you think?
Yeah, I have to agree with the previous comments. I struggled with this wine a little bit. It wasn't bad wine, but it was very light to me in terms of structure and soft, with mostly tannin and a little bit of fruit. I kind of thought maybe this was a California wine because of that VA quality to it.
Okay, and so your thought process behind that was that since it's a little bit warmer in California, you might get that kind of clunky quality?
California tends to over-extract, I think. Sometimes leave the grapes on the vine a little too long,
Okay.
and it creates a brighter style that's more fruit-forward and more tannin heavy than you would find in the Old World. And that's why I kind of landed this as a New World wine.
Right, and so that's certainly, and we'll see that maybe throughout the tasting as well. So there's a couple of California wines in here. So, Russell, what'd you think?
I'd like to add just a couple of technical things to this. Speaking specifically to the warmer climate aspect of this wine, which I agree with, and volatile acidity in general, there are two components to volatile acidity. There's the one that you mentioned, which is acetic acid, which is a result of bacterial action causing vinegar, basically.
Right.
And then the other component, which is actually more common in wine, is ethyl acetate.
Right, which is an ester.
Right, which most people would recognize as fingernail polish remover, and that is typically, that's what I get in this wine, although slightly, but that is more typically what you find as an expression of volatile acidity in modern wines.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so maybe not the favorite of the bunch here, but we will see. Let's hit wine number 3, and then we'll take a short break and we'll talk more about the journal and a bunch of other things going on. Who wants to start this one off? Wine number 3, Rob. Why don't we start with you?
Oh, okay. This wine was unexpected for me. I mean, in terms of thinking Sangiovese, as we talked about earlier, it had very ripe fruit quality to me. I got a hint of eucalyptus under there, which I never ever expect to see in Sangiovese. Very chewy structure, chewy tannins. It said probably again someplace a little bit warmer, but it didn't have that California style, so I'm thinking it might be somewhere southern Italy.
Right, so that southern Italian is seeing more sun, more heat, and so you get a little bit more ripe fruit.
Right.
Yeah. What Henny, what do you think?
Right, I agree with Rob there on I felt like the alcohol was a little high on it, and that's, to me, screams it was a hot weather, probably southern Italy, in my opinion, but it had bigger acids than number 1, certainly. Lots of layers of black currant and red fruit and kind of earthiness. I did like this wine. It wasn't my favorite, but I did like it.
Oh, very cool. Jesse, you wanna pick up that thought?
Yeah, I actually very much enjoyed this wine, and picking up on that fruit quality, it really almost had a carbonic macerated, like a tutti fruity, chewy, really fresh, bright feel to it, but still with some of those old world qualities. I still picked up on those dried, herbaceous qualities, and it did seem Italian to me, but from a much warmer place in Italy. But I did really enjoy this wine. It was fresh and quite pleasing on the palate.
Yeah, Russell, what last comments there?
Yes, a good simple Sangiovese.
All right. Well,
Let's not get too complicated about it, Russell.
well, I love. Sometimes that just has to be said. Sometimes we just have to say, the simple things and have impact. We are going to take a short break. We're right about at the half-hour mark, 1:30 in the capital city of Texas. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Radio for People and Not for Profit, and we always have a really fun time here. Remember, this is our Texas versus the World edition of Another Bottle Down, and if you want to see more information about the Texas Wine Journal, it's texaswinejournal.org, and Daniel Collada is the one behind rating Texas wines in a blind and unbiased way, and then one of the top wines in the category gets selected, it gets written about on that website, and then we try and throw it in here on the show, and we always have a lot of fun with it. Stay tuned, we're going to talk about the remaining 3 wines, and when we come back, we're going to do the reveal, so stick with us.